Hey, how's it going? James here with Fish Room Fever, and I hope you are having a wonderful day. So did you know that you probably already have a free box filter lying around your house and you didn't even know it? That's what we're going to talk about today. One of my favorite things to do in this hobby is take scraps or things that would have gone in the trash and make something out of nothing for free or almost free. That's why I'm going to show you how to turn this into this, coming up right now. Alright, so this is a pretty straightforward project, and you can do this with just things that you probably have lying around the fish room. Again, we're going to be using this fish food container, and then we're going to need some sort of uplift tube. So I've actually got a couple pieces from an under gravel filter that I no longer use, but I kept the tubing. Now you could use PVC. You could get real creative if you have a hang-on back filter that maybe doesn't function properly anymore, and you could cut that uplift tube on that, or that intake tube. A lot of different things you can use. You're basically only limited by your imagination and what you happen to have on hand, but just about any tubing will do. Then we've got some ceramic rings, some other media to go in the bottom of this thing. I've got my tools that I'm going to use to make the holes. Now I'm using a drill and a couple of different bits, but you could also use a razor knife. Just whatever you use, be careful, safety first. And then the other thing we're going to use is some polyfill. Now this is not brand new, this is actually used, but great thing about polyfill, rinse it out, reuse it, no problem. The first thing that I want to do is get my center hole in there for my uplift tube. Now on a lot of your lids, you'll notice there's a little ring in there from the manufacturing process, a little dot in the center. It's going to make it real easy to line that up and get that hole centered. You could measure it out and mark it if you wanted to. In this instance, I'm actually using a glass cutting bit. I purchased a kit of various sizes when I needed to drill some overflow holes for my aquariums. Some of the sizes I'm never going to use on glass, but I kept them because they're great for various projects like this. Now, if you don't have one of these, you could use a large drill bit. If you don't have one big enough, you could make multiple holes with a smaller drill bit and then kind of connect them together. You could also use a Dremel. Once again, basically just limited by your imagination. And of course, like I said, you could always use a razor knife. But I'm going to get that first hole in here, and I will be right back with you. Okay, so we've made a couple of quote-unquote mistakes here because I want to show you a few things just in case this happens to you. Number one, I went ahead and did it off-center. It's not a big deal if this happens. If you go to drill your hole and it's not perfectly center, you're fine. Number two, and I knew this before I even started the project, the hole is bigger than the tubing is by a decent little bit. It's not really enough that it's going to ruin it if you ran it this way. I mean, ours is going to sit like that anyhow, but you've got a couple different options on how you can quote-unquote fix it. One would simply be to run a bead of super glue, some cyanoacrylate gel around that. But I wanted to show you one of my favorite tricks for sealing things up like that and making your own gasket. So this is just some black airline tubing. You could use the clear airline tubing as well, but this stuff's a little bit more flexible. That's why I like it. And then I just simply took and cut a slit straight down one side of it, all the way down. And then all you're going to do, and knowing how steady my hand is, I'll probably do this off camera, let's see. But all you're going to do is simply get that on there, open that groove up that you've made, see, I might be able to do it on camera, what do you know. So while I'm trying to get this together, if you're enjoying the video so far, do me a favor, hit the thumbs up, ding that notification bell. And I'd really appreciate it if you'd subscribe if you aren't already. I know you hear that from pretty much every YouTuber you watch, but it really does help, and it lets me know that you appreciate the work that we put in here on the channel, trying to make these videos for you. Alright, hey, that timed out perfectly. So I've got that on there now, and then as you'll see here, the trick is not to knock it off when you're threading this through. Now we've got a nice tight fit on that. and that's going to help prevent any airflow, or water flow that is, coming through there. And we're going to get all of that water flow coming through the holes that we drill in here in just a second, and then going down through our filter media and then coming back up the tube. But I'm going to go ahead and take this bit here. Now I've got a 1/4 inch bit. That's what I like to use. You could vary that. But I'm going to go through and put some holes. Once again, this is one of those parts that if you really want to make it look pretty, you can go ahead and pre-mark all your holes and get a nice grid going. I'm just going to eyeball it. It doesn't have to be perfect. So I'm going to get that done, and to avoid the noisy drill, I'm going to go ahead and pause the camera and come right back to you. Alright, so we've got the holes drilled in here. Now you can do this a couple different ways. On this one I just went with that 1/4 inch hole, one row around. If I had it perfectly center, I may have gone through with a smaller bit possibly, and I've done this before, and do one outer ring and then come back and offset an inner ring. In case you were wondering what the 2x4 was for and where it came from, I use that so that when I'm drilling my holes I've got something steady. That way I can drill down into something without drilling into my table and without having to try and hold it and freehand it. That's a wonderful way to put a drill bit through your hand, is doing that. So again, it's a safety thing and it makes it easier. So now that we've got that done, just a general idea of what it's going to look like. We get it in the tank. And not going to be perfectly centered, but we do also have some wiggle room so that we can offset that to get it more towards center in terms of where it's pulling up the water for the uplift. And I've got that on there. Now you can do this with just a straight pipe, you know, just like you would see most sponge filters and box filters that just have the water and the air bubbling straight out. Since I do have this piece handy and it's a part of this tubing setup from that under gravel filter, I figured I would go ahead and use it. I often will put a PVC elbow on my sponge filters in this manner. That way I can direct some flow throughout the tank and kind of get some circulation going, since that's the only flow that I'm getting. It's whatever comes from my sponge filter. This is going to serve two purposes. And again, I'm just using some ceramic rings and then some other media pellets. This stuff has been in a sump and is all seasoned and good to go. It's got beneficial bacteria. Part of why it disappeared from the video is I put it back in the water to keep that beneficial bacteria alive. But you could also use aquarium gravel, you could use lava rock, any of that stuff will work. It's serving two purposes. One, it's going to be a good area for beneficial bacteria to grow in, but it's also going to help weigh this down so it doesn't just try and float around. Because if we take this and fill it just with polyfill and run air into it, this thing's just going to be floating all over the place in the tank. So let's add in some of these. And that may be too much, but I'd rather have a little bit extra in there. It's definitely got enough weight that it should hold it down. Get it centered in there. Go ahead and take your polyfill, and I'm not sure how much we're going to use of this just yet, but I think this is going to be just about right. Stuff it down in there. May need a little more, which I don't know if I have for this project or not, but for all intents and purposes we're going to call that good. And what I'm actually going to do, so I've got to pick up more polyfill. In the meantime, just for the purposes of getting this video finished, here comes more loud noises. I'm going to dump all of that in there so it's going to fill all the space. Trying to wrap it around to keep that kind of centered up to where our hole's going to be at. That would give us a nice fit. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get this polyfill in there compact enough so that it's going to prevent any water from getting around it, and and simply passing through there. Again, normally I would have the polyfill down to about here, but once again, for the purposes of this video, I don't have any extra polyfill at the moment. So we're going to go with this just so we can get it set up in the tank and show you how it works. Alright, so here you can see it set up and running in the tank. Now in terms of your air line, you've got a couple different options. You can either run it with or without an air stone. Now I wanted much finer bubbles, and I do have this thing turned way up right now, but I wanted to see how well it works. So I do have an air stone on here. Push that back down in there. And I basically want to get it as far down as I can, but not so far that it pushes any bubbles out the side. So we've got that all the way down in there, and it is definitely kicking up some water. Let me see if I can get you a shot of that particulate getting sucked in those holes, and that's how you know it's working. When you see all those particles getting sucked down in there. Let's see if we can't make a mess in the tank here, dirty it up a little bit. Alright, so I stirred up a little bit of debris off the bottom just so you could see it getting sucked down into there. So it's going to get sucked down in. It's going to go through that polyfill, and it's going to come through where our beneficial bacteria is. That clean water is going to pass right back up and right out into the aquarium. Now as you can see, you can get a good bit of flow however you want to direct this thing. If we point it toward the back. Sorry, there's one of the cats scratching at the door. If we point it to the back, we can get a lot of flow going that way. Or we can run it like that, which is how I prefer to do it, and it's going to shoot a nice flow all the way across here. I do really appreciate you all watching. I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you give this little project a try. If you do give it a try, let me know down in the comments below. Or if you've got another do-it-yourself box filter, do me a favor, tell me about it in the comments as well. I'd love to discuss it with you. Until next time, keep your fish healthy, keep yourselves healthy, and catch yourself a little fish room fever. Take care, everybody.